Possibility came to speak to me in an early morning dream. She was cloaked in all potential and veiled in mystery. I almost didn't answer when she roused me from the deep, urged me to pick up the pen instead of going back to sleep. Her message was quite simple, and I know it to be true. So I quickly jotted down these words to share them here with you. While anything is possible is said time and time again, the trick to finding rainbows is remembering to look for them. So one of my favorite superpowers is imagination. It sort of feels a little bit miraculous to me that we can use our minds to create worlds that don't exist, to imagine futures and pasts that are beyond what we perceive in our current moment, and even to feel into, as Dan was talking, to feel into the imperceptible qualities of now. And so I'm going to invite you to play a little bit with your imagination and bring your child self into this if you'd like. And if you'd like to, you can close your eyes, you can keep them open, you can, you'll notice there's nothing on the dome because this is the image that your mind is going to project on the screen. So imagine you're standing on a path. Imagine a path that is familiar. Maybe it's one you've walked before, one you've seen in pictures or movies. It's a path that feels comfortable, safe, one that feels like home. And imagine yourself moving down that path, setting out slowly but with intention. Look around and notice the sights. What do your surroundings look like? What do you hear? Imagine if there was a scent, an aroma in the air. What could you smell? Maybe there's even a taste in your mouth, a texture to the air. Who's with you as you're traveling? Perhaps other people or animals, perhaps people who are not here presently, but are with you in spirit. Notice the way the ground feels beneath you as you move down the path. And take a deep breath. See if you can breathe in a sense of appreciation for all of these senses. As you continue moving down the path, you look ahead up into the distance and you see a small trail that veers off to the right. And this trail seems to be calling you. You're curious. So you start to move in that direction, perhaps setting down some things you're carrying that you don't need to take on this new road. And imagine yourself going down this new trail, a sense of curious adventure. And on this trail, you notice that the forms are less dense until finally they fade away and you emerge into a field that is thick with mist, a dense fog that wraps around you like the softest blanket you've ever felt. Standing in this field, you can't see very far in any direction, but you notice up in the distance there are some lights twinkling softly, so you move in the direction of the lights. And as you move closer, you notice that the lights are strung from a tree. It is the most spectacular tree you have ever seen. It has a 12-foot base with branches that stretch up and out and over to form a canopy, a shelter, a sanctuary. You notice that there are people sitting underneath the branches of the trees, so you go and find a soft spot to sit onto. And as you sit, you feel as though the ground is rising up to embrace you. The earth is there to hold you, to support you. And as you sit, held by the earth, canopied by the tree, imagine your heart opening to gratitude. And notice what you feel grateful for in this moment. And as you allow gratitude to fill your heart, your being, allow the winds of the flute to carry that gratitude out to those who are sitting with you and to all those who inhabit this world with us. Take another breath in and out. And as you open your eyes, if you choose to open your eyes, imagine that we are all gathered under that tree together. All of us, and a man and a woman who are here to share a story. The tale began long before I was born, winding in strands as time spirals the story in all directions. Each moment is but one twist in the narrative, one glimpse which does not make a whole. Imagining who I was in the past based on a self I see today as I am rippling out into tomorrow. Can I tell you a secret? Yeah, is that okay? Okay. I mean, we're here together, so it's okay, I can tell you a secret. You have to promise not to tell anybody though, okay? So a few years ago, I decided to start doing something that my parents always told me never to do when I was a child. I decided to start talking to strangers. You see, I had built a fortress around my heart, day by day, year by year, brick by brick, until I couldn't feel what it was like to be me anymore. Moving through the rhythms of my day, blocking out the things I thought might wound me, but also holding in the fullest expression of myself, for fear of failure, of rejection. I realized that I was having all these interactions with people who shared my city, my community, my world, and barely even making eye contact or moving the conversation beyond the essential. You know the one, how can I help you? Small coffee, please. 211. Have a great day. I stopped my autopilot. It felt risky the first time I looked a barista in the eye and asked him how his day was. He was actually a little taken aback. I'm sorry, you caught me off guard because you asked me like you actually meant it. Some people I met only once. Still, they made an impression. Like the woman who took my order at the burger shop. Her name tag said Miracle, which seems something lyrical. I asked how she got her name, though I could imagine the story before she told it. I just wanted to see the way her face lit up as she remembered who she was. This talking to strangers, this behavior that seems so outrageous, transformed my world of transactions into one of shared stories. I began to experience the way our stories connect us. Maybe that's part of what allows us to feel into the heart of another human, as we find our own story reflected in theirs and begin to experience the miracle that we are by recognizing the miracle in others. One day, I was sitting on a bench by the river, enjoying a quiet moment between tasks and some time to myself. I was practicing a new way of seeing, relaxing my eyes until the ground appeared to pulse like a heartbeat. I was writing this poem in my head when a man called out to me. "Don't be so weary," he said. "I'm not weary," I replied, just thinking. He was sitting on top of a picnic table, looking out at the river and also at me. He was wearing a New York Mets cap, and I commented, "I'm going to New York, and you're wearing a New York hat." "You want my hat?" he asked. "No," I replied, "I'm going to New York, and you're wearing a New York hat. I just noticed that." I wanted to say something about it. He smiled, a gold toothy smile. My mom's from New York, but I've never been. It's a different place, I told him. My mom's from Brooklyn, he told me. Oh, I'm going to see my sister. She lives in Brooklyn too. I looked beyond him to the street, to where my car was parked in front of a city office building where I'd spent time in a meeting earlier. Enjoy the springtime, I said, and started to head up the small hill towards the road. Hey, when are you leaving? He asked. Right now, I said. I'm going right now. Have a good flight. I started to walk away when I had the urge to turn back and say thank you for talking to me. You're welcome, he said with a wave, and turned back to face the river where my gaze followed to take in the shape of this new friend. Looking out at the river the way I often do, appreciating the ebb and flow, stillness and movement, the gift of conversation, and the thought, perhaps I am weary. I met my friend Philip when he was working at a place in Austin, Texas, where I live. It's called the Steeping Room. I used to go there all the time to write, to read, to connect with friends. Philip and I got to talking, and it turns out that he's a poet too. And one day when I went in, he slipped a poem about the universe under my teacup. And from there began this beautiful friendship, exchange of poems, of hearts, of minds. Philip moved from Austin to Florida shortly after I met him, but I began to experience something different. I noticed that oftentimes I would be thinking about Philip, and then in that moment, he'd send me a text message. Or I was reading a book, and he would send me a picture that was right on the theme of what I was reading about. I started to imagine, what was it that was connecting us? Like invisible threads from our hearts, from our beings. And could there be these invisible threads that run throughout everything and everywhere? And I started to pay attention to those moments of synchronicity and not dismiss them as crazy, but appreciate them as the most real thing that there could be. One day, Philip and I were talking on the phone, and he was telling me about a challenging time he was going through. All I wanted was to give him a hug, but he was thousands of miles away, so I had to settle for an I love you over the phone, and trusting that those invisible threads were carrying my love to him. I started out for a walk after we got off the phone, and about a minute into my walk, I looked up at the sky and I saw an angel. It was a cloud angel with a round head and great big billowy arms. And I thought, that is Philip's angel. So I took a picture of the angel and I sent it to Philip. As I was reaching the end of my walk, a storm was starting to form just as the sun was setting. And I noticed the way that the colors of the clouds and the light refracted and reflected this sort of distorted rainbow. It was beautiful, dark and stormy and painful and beautiful. I came home and I wrote this poem that I'll sing for you, and as I sing it, imagine that you have invisible threads from your heart that connect you to those you care about, to those strangers that you've never even met, to the past, to the future. And imagine that you can send your care, your compassion, your love, your energy on those invisible threads. The sky brought me an angel, and I sent her on to you in hopes that you would know how much you're loved. The sky brought me a rainbow in clouds of every hue. The storms inside your heart reflect above. But rainbows dim and angels fly, and you can't hear my lullaby. It seems that these few lines will have to do. So sleep, my sweet, and hold on tight, as if it were my arms embracing you, as if it were my arms embracing you. I wish that you knew how important you are. Your pure-hearted presence and soft-spoken truth. I wish that you knew your strength lied not in pushing against, but in that subtle grace that moves you through each day. The surprisingly wise things you say when you think you are saying nothing. I wish I could hand you a mirror, and in the reflection, you'd see perfection. I wish that you could see yourself through my eyes. When there is no room left for love, when you have stuffed your bags so full that the zipper moans as you close it, when the weight of obligation presses against your chest and the steady beat of shoulds and have-tos pulses in your head, Drop all of those things you believe to be essential and real. Let them all go and feel the breath in your lungs, the breeze on your face, this gentle embrace. When there's no room for love, imagine that love can squeeze through the narrowest of cracks, lay roots through a mountain of granite, spread across a field of doubt and insecurity, leaving a trail of shimmer-glazed popcorn that will lead you back to who you are. When there is no room left for love, remember that love occupies no space, requires no time, inhabits no place. Of all the ways my conversations with strangers opened me to new perspectives on myself, no one has had as profound an impact on me and my becoming as my daughter. For a brief glimpse of time, she was just the right size for me to hold in one arm. My fingers nested her down-covered head. The heel of my hand rested in the folds of a neck not strong enough to support a skull still forming. The pulse of her primal heart beat into my wrist. I could balance her spine along the length of my forearm. Her pelvis rested in the crook of my elbow. Without a swaddle, her legs cascaded down and her arms grasped the air in disjointed bursts. Naked, she had no choice but to trust. Had not yet learned of dread or betrayal or loss. No one had warned her of risk. nor cloaked her in stories of big bad wolves and wicked witches and golden-haired girls who steal your porridge when no one is looking. My daughter looked at me with night-black eyes and a mouth that was convincing enough for me to say she was smiling. Most would have said it was just a reflex. Her eyes released the latch of a window in my heart I thought I had sealed shut. The one that introverted me within a shell of me, myself, and I's, insulated from the lows and the highs, forgetting that the depths of despair have equal and opposite peaks of joy, and that both are evidence of my aliveness. The one that contented me with complacency, rather than testing the extent of my resiliency. But I didn't come here to tiptoe around the edges of being, to rest comfortably halfway between fear and desire, suffering and awe. And neither did she. A little while into my talking to strangers experiment, I was at a gathering at a friend's house and I met a man. We were talking about nature and our mutual love for hiking. He said that his favorite part of the hike was the view from the top and the beer at the bottom. I told him that I liked the way up. I liked the not knowing what was going to be around every corner, the moments I had to pause and catch my breath, take a sip of water, and gather that courage and strength to keep going on. And then he said something that blew my mind. There are no straight lines in nature, he told me. There are no right angles, no flat surfaces. How could I not have noticed? Now I look for them everywhere. I look for lines in the way grass grows. I search for angles in trees, a smooth face of rock on which to rest. But each blade of grass curves a little differently. Each limb emerges in a peculiar way. The ground pokes at my seat. I see the path of a storm twist and turn up a jagged coastline. Boundaries blur between colors of a rainbow. Even my body is all curves, expanding and contracting with each breath as I sit, pen in hand, searching for the linear narrative of this journey. But life does not unfold in a straight line. No, it spirals like the path of a butterfly. It putters along quietly, then opens wide, explodes in torrents, floods of action and emotion, leaving puddles and pools in its wake. I am standing at the edge of the story. In the reflection, I make meaning from angles not right or wrong, but different. Each lens offering its own perspective. The story changes every time I tell it. Words can only approximate a narrative that spirals, weaving echoes through time as our tales twine together as we decide which will be the next step. The one fueled by fear, or the one guided by courage and compassion. We are standing together at the edge of this story. I will pass you my pen. Together, we will write the next chapter.